Hi again. I'm happy you're joining me for another devotional. I'm Marco Arroyo, the preacher with the Seagoville Church of Christ in Seagoville, Texas. Again, I'm glad that you're here. We're going to be in Hebrews 12, if you'll turn there with me. Hebrews 12. Just today, I'm recording this Sunday night after Bible class and two amazing services with the Seagoville Church of Christ. It's been an awesome day, and I've been reflecting on the day a little bit, and I didn't really have this devotional planned actually, and just kind of turned out this way from something that happened tonight. Actually, I was preaching the evening sermon, and at some point, my beautiful daughter, she's growing to the point where her voice is getting loud. I mean, when she wants to scream, it's 3 months of power, and sometimes. At home, she cries and I go, that's a pretty loud cry. And I know how loud it can get too. And tonight during the sermon at one point, I ended up asking my wife about this, Maggie. I said, hey, what happened? Because she started crying loud too. And apparently, Maggie was feeding her some milk out of a bottle, and the milk finished. And so, of course, it was just the end of the world. And so she started crying. I just kept on preaching, nothing new, but it got louder and louder. And from my point of view, I felt like I could barely hear myself, let alone, I was thinking, if I can barely hear myself, they probably can't hear me at all right now. So I thought, because I know the protocol, Melania starts crying and Maggie tries a couple things. I might try one or two things. And if that doesn't work, we just take her out and, maybe feed her more, or, walk around with her in the nursery or just out in the back of the auditorium, whatever it might be, right? There's little tricks you can do. But sometimes you try to withstand the initial onslaught of the cry and then try to make it through, and hopefully, no big deal. But she just kept on crying and it got louder. And so I thought it'd be funny to just remark on it, So in the moment I said, I have such a beautiful daughter. Isn't that such a beautiful cry? I said something like that during the sermon. Everyone kind of thought that was funny too and laughed with me. Just to kind of tell everyone, I noticed, I noticed the cry too. And, of course I wasn't at all bothered by it. Not at all. Babies cry. Even my baby, as perfect as she is, she cries. But in the moment I just felt, I've got to say something because I feel like no one can hear me. So maybe I'll just say something, address it really quickly. Well, after services, I started talking about that with Maggie. And I told her, I said, we talked about how I brought it up. I don't remember who brought it up, but I told her, I said, I couldn't even hear myself. I thought I should just address it and say something about it, give you some time. Maybe you can, you were going to take her out. That way everyone could hear me again. Maggie said, what do you mean? We could hear you just fine. It wasn't that loud. And I thought, what do you mean? I couldn't even hear myself. I could barely hear my own words from how loud she was crying. And Maggie said, it really wasn't that loud. It wasn't quiet, but it wasn't so loud to where someone couldn't hear you. We could all hear you perfectly. It wasn't even competing at all. And that kind of blew my mind. It kind of blew my mind because in no way do I question that from my wife's perspective at all. I'm 100% sure she was right. And that kind of blows my mind. That from standing up there where I was, and I realize now the speakers are not facing me. They're facing everyone in the pews. I felt like I couldn't even hear myself. And if I can't hear myself, how can they hear me? But for everyone else, it was fine. It wasn't that bad. Just hearing a baby cry in the room, and it's a big room, so just some crying, and they could hear me just fine. I could have just kept on preaching, and no one would have missed any words that I said from volume, from Melania's volume, and it really did blow my mind. And I was thinking about that more and more and we were talking about that on the drive home, and all the way up till now, I was thinking about it more and more, and I realized that sometimes in my life, because of where I'm situated, I don't see my problems in the way that I should. Sometimes because of the position I'm situated, and you are in this position too. When it's a suffering that you're going through, you're situated in the position of sufferer who has to go through the suffering and has to go through that each and every day. And so for you, it's not going to appear, it's going to appear extremely difficult for you. And it very well could be extremely difficult. However, odds are, and you probably have noticed this before, it might feel worse to you than it actually is just because you're the one that has to go through it. But the problem in and of itself might not be as bad as you are treating it, but you're treating it that way because you're going through it. I think we all do this. I want to be clear here. I'm not denying anyone's experience. I'm not saying if you go through something horrible, it's not horrible. There are a lot of things we go through that are horrible, but sometimes we make them out to be more horrible than they are. They're still horrible, but sometimes we might make them out to be more horrible simply because we're the ones that are going through it. And we forget that from an objective perspective, the problem is not that bad. It's bad, but it's not that bad. That really could very well be the thing that takes us or that gives us the patience that we need in hardship. To know this is bad, but this is not world-ending bad. It only feels that way because I'm the one that's going through it. Sometimes when other people's family members pass away, we go, oh man, that's terrible. I'm going to be praying for them and they'll make it through. But then when it happens to you, it feels like your world's going to end. When it happens to you, I don't know how I'm going to go on. I don't think I can go on. Why? Because it's happening to you and it hurts. It's horrible. But from an objective perspective, you can get through it. And you know that because you've seen other people get through it. And other people do get through it. That's the message in Hebrews 12 verses 1 and 2. He's writing off of the back of Hebrews 11. All those faithful people. Therefore we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Notice that? We're surrounded by, in that first verse, so great a cloud of witnesses. Witnesses is very important. Who's he talking about? He's talking about all these faithful people. And he says, with all those people in mind, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. You got to carry this weight vest on you as you go through this life of all your hardship, your suffering, your struggles, all those things. And he says here, lay it aside. Lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Sometimes there are burdens on you in your life, emotional burdens that you're placing on yourself. And he says, lay it aside. Lay these burdens aside. Lay your concerns aside. Burdens in Galatians 6 are struggles with sin in verses 1 and 2. Lay it all aside and run the race like they did. It's hard. It was difficult for them, but you can run the race like they did. They did it, so you can do it too. I know for you, it feels like it's just impossible to live a faithful life for God. It feels, there's no way I'm going to be able to make it to heaven. You can. They did it, which means that you can do it. It just might feel like it's impossible because you're the one that's having to do it, and it's hard, but you literally, physically, you can actually do it. You can do this. You might be suffering in your life. I want you to hear this. You can overcome this. You can get through this. If you feel like you can't, it just might be because you're the one that has to go through it, and that's hard. And I'm praying for you about that. But remember, there are other people who have gone through what you're going through right now. Jesus was tempted in all points as we are, suffered in his life. Hebrews 4:15, chapter 5, verses 8 and 9. He made it through. These faithful people in Hebrews 11, they've gone through the things you go through. They made it through. All these things that we struggle with, other people have done it. And at times they felt like they couldn't do it too. And guess what? They did it. They're no more special than you are. We're all the same. If they did it, you can too. Sometimes it's just because of where you're situated. You're up on the stage in front of the church, in the auditorium. There's no speakers facing at you, so you don't realize your baby's not that loud. She's not drowning you out. You don't realize you're suffering. It's not so bad that you're not going to be able to make it through it. And you're not going to be able to, make it through. It's just that where you're situated, it's hard to see it. But just keep on pushing through. You'll make it. You will make it. When God's in your life, when God's on your side, you will make it. I love you very much. And I want to encourage you this week to pray prayers of trust to God. God, help me to remember that I will make it through. Read the stories of these people in Hebrews 11. Read about the sufferings of Paul in the latter part of the book of Acts. You could really start chapter 16. And look at how many times, and I would encourage you to especially do that. Look at how many times in Paul's ministry he suffered. How much of the time could he have said it, or did he say, I don't know if I can do this? How much do you do that? And thirdly, ask yourself in this situation, am I going to treat this problem I have like it's insurmountable, like I can't make it through? Or am I going to treat it as someone who sees it not as the person who has to go through it only, but as someone who trusts in the reality other people made it through this. I can make it through it too. You can do this. When God's on your side, you will make it. It's all going to be okay. I love you very much. May God bless you in this coming week, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Goodbye.